the girl who talked to gadgets. The atmosphere inside Lily's workspace vibrated with the whine of a soldering iron and a subtle metallic tang. Obsolete circuit boards were strewn across the surface like autumn foliage, each a marker of a project embraced, refined, and occasionally shelved. Hunched over a disorderly array of wires and resistors, Lily mumbled, "All right, if I reroute the signal through... Nope, that'll blow the capacitor again." She dropped the soldering iron back into its cradle with a snap of impatience. Some days, the devices seemed to taunt her, guarding secrets just beyond her grasp. They called her the Gadget Whisperer, a moniker she both cherished and resented. Cherished because it validated her talent for enlivening inanimate objects, resented because it hinted at something more. A damp nose nudged her arm. Buster, a mutt of indeterminate breed, emitted a soft whine, his tail drumming a hopeful beat against the workbench leg. Lily obliged with a scratch behind the ears. "Rough day, huh, buddy?" Buster responded with a series of joyful yaps and a lick. Lily sighed, wishing she could truly grasp his intent. What spurred his barking vigils at the window? What prompted his ritualistic burial and exhumation of his treasured bone in the rose garden? That night, slumber proved elusive. The image of Buster, his soulful eyes brimming with unspoken thoughts, danced behind her closed eyes. She thrashed in the sheets before finally sitting upright with a start. Suppose a bridge could be built? Daybreak found her weary-eyed but charged with purpose. She retrieved her sketchbook, its pages brimming with nascent concepts and technical schematics. The inspiration felt different this time, more compelling. She began to draw, the pencil racing across the page. A collar, streamlined and featherlight, equipped with a minute microphone and a complex algorithm to decipher barks. It would translate Buster's utterances into simple phrases, displayed on a small screen for her eyes only. Thirsty, playtime, intruder. She reveled in the potential. No more blind guesses. No more frustrating misinterpretations. Genuine communication with her dearest companion. The preliminary design was crude, bordering on the absurd. A cumbersome creation that resembled a medieval restraint more than a communications device. Lily examined it, a surge of doubt flooding her. It was preposterous, unachievable. Her colleagues at the tech company would dismiss out of hand. She crumpled the sketch, ready to abandon the undertaking before it even gained momentum. But then, her gaze fell on Buster, dreaming at her feet, his tail quivering. A flicker of resolve ignited within her. Perhaps it was madness. But what if it succeeded? She smoothed out the wrinkled paper, seized a clean sheet, and began anew. This time, the lines flowed with a newfound sureness. This time, she wasn't merely drafting a gadget. She was drafting a connection, a meeting of the minds, and mockery. Lily's palms were slick with sweat as she adjusted the BarkTalk prototype on the table. It looked smaller here, surrounded by the steel and glass of the conference room, like a lonely, abandoned chew toy. The fluorescent lights hummed, amplifying her anxiety. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of the joy she felt watching Pepper use the initial version. That was real. This was just performance. Mark sauntered in, a steaming mug in hand. "All right, Chun, let's see what crazy contraption you've cooked up this time." He didn't even bother to hide the smirk playing on his lips. Sarah and Tom followed, exchanging glances that screamed pre-planned amusement. Lily cleared her throat. "So, as you know, we've been tasked with brainstorming new product lines. I've been working on something I call BarkTalk." She picked up the collar, its embedded microphone glinting under the harsh light. It's a smart collar that translates dog barks into human-understandable language. Silence. Then Mark erupted in laughter, a loud, booming sound that echoed around the room. Sarah giggled, covering her mouth with her hand, while Tom snorted, nearly spilling his coffee. "You're serious?" Mark managed to choke out between guffaws. "A dog translator? What's next, cat therapists?" "I know it sounds unconventional," Lily stammered, her cheeks burning. "But think about it. Pet owners could finally understand what their dogs are trying to tell them. Think of the applications. training, behavioral issues, even just strengthening the bond. Or, Sarah interjected, her voice dripping with sarcasm, we could stick to making squeaky toys and overpriced dog beds. You know, the stuff that actually sells. Tom nodded in agreement. Yeah, Chun. Stick to the basics. Leave the sci-fi stuff to the movies. Lily's shoulders slumped. She had anticipated some skepticism, but this felt like a personal attack. The air in the room, thick with derision, felt suffocating. She glanced at the prototype, now looking utterly pathetic under the judging eyes of her colleagues. The joy she felt just moments ago was gone, replaced by a gnawing sense of shame. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was just a stupid idea, a ridiculous pipe dream. But deep down, a tiny ember of defiance flickered. Hidden sparks. The office's sterile illumination felt like a jeer as Lily dragged herself back to her workspace. Each keystroke, every hushed conversation, needled at her like tiny pricks of malice. The meeting replayed in her mind's eye. Patronizing smiles, veiled criticisms of bark talk, Mr. Henderson's dismissive gesture that crushed her idea. Shame heated her face. That evening, the quiet of her apartment thrummed with an intensity rivaling the boardroom's clamor. Shoes abandoned, she sank onto the sofa, its worn surface offering scant solace. Her bark talk sketches lay scattered on the coffee table, pages teeming with cheerful canines sporting futuristic collars, their imagined thoughts captured in whimsical speech bubbles. She'd lacked the strength to file them away that morning. For a long while, she simply gazed at the drawings, the initial thrill tarnished by the day's battering. Doubt crept in, whispering insidious possibilities. Perhaps they were right. Maybe it was a fool's errand. But then, a faint ember of defiance flared within. Lifting a sketch, she traced the fur of a happy Samoyed. No, she resolved. It was not absurd. It was groundbreaking. It was invigorating. It was her. Rising, she moved to her overflowing desk. Instead of powering down her machine, she entered Arduino for Beginners into the search engine. Hours blurred as she immersed herself in online tutorials, her initial apprehension giving way to a mounting sense of resolve. She absorbed information on circuits and sensors, microcontrollers, and programming languages. The technical jargon was intimidating, yet the challenge proved exhilarating. The following evening, after another dispiriting day at the office, Lily bypassed the sofa altogether. She headed directly for her computer, a current of fresh energy surging through her. This time, she searched for vendors of miniature voice recorders and featherweight GPS trackers. She envisioned the elegant, comfortable collar, the diminutive speaker translating canine vocalizations into coherent phrases. Days later, a small parcel landed on her porch. Within, cushioned by layers of protective plastic, lay the first building blocks of her vision: a compact circuit board, a tiny microphone, and a pliable, waterproof shell. Clutching them, Lily felt a wave of optimism wash over her. The hidden flame, nearly snuffed out, now blazed with renewed intensity. The true undertaking was about to commence. The inventor's struggle. Lily scrutinized the prototype, a chaotic jumble of wires and sensors haphazardly affixed to a dog collar. It resembled less a groundbreaking communication device and more a medieval device better suited to miniature dog torment. From his perch on the kitchen counter, Barnaby, her ginger tabby, observed with his customary air of feline disdain. "All right, Barnaby," she said, striving for a light tone. "Unfiltered opinion. What's Fido's take on this fashion-forward piece?" Barnaby offered a languid blink, then meticulously groomed his paw. Lily's shoulders slumped. She already knew Fido's verdict. The present iteration was cumbersome, irritating, and likely a fire hazard waiting to happen. The following days became a battle against design flaws. Downsized circuits meant diminished power, and diminished power translated to a weaker signal. The collar demanded lightness, resilience, and, crucially, aesthetic appeal. No one desired to burden their furry companion with an ungainly brick around their neck. Beyond mechanics lay the translation challenges. The initial algorithm, while theoretically sound, frequently spewed nonsense. A canine woof, signifying a desire for a stroll, materialized as the moon mourns your missing hosiery. Lily groaned, pressing her palms to her forehead. Was she tilting at windmills, or was she just barking up the wrong tree? Late one evening, sustained by stale coffee and unyielding determination, progress finally emerged. She had refined a framework, honed the translation software, and even managed to incorporate a minuscule solar power charger. Triumph seemed imminent. Then, disaster struck. The screen froze, replaced by the dreaded blue screen of death. Her computer, that ancient, capricious machine, had breathed its last. Panic seized her. Weeks of labor, countless lines of code, potentially lost. She slammed her fist against the desk, a frustrated cry escaping her. Barnaby, startled by the outburst, vaulted from the counter and vanished. Defeated, Lily sank back in her chair. The budget was already razor-thin. Replacing the computer meant postponing production, delaying the launch indefinitely. Tears pricked her eyes. Perhaps her colleagues were correct. Perhaps she was pursuing a fool's errand. Maybe she ought to simply concede. But then, the wellspring of her motivation resurfaced. The vision of a solitary individual, unable to decipher her dog's anguish, flashed vividly in her mind. No, surrender was not an option. Not yet. Taking a fortifying breath, she retrieved her phone and commenced a search for affordable computer repair services. The struggle was far from finished. It had simply encountered a discouraging diversion. Eureka! A barking breakthrough. Lily hunched over her workbench, the acrid smell of soldering flux stinging her nostrils. Copper wires, thinner than strands of hair, snaked across the breadboard, a chaotic web slowly transforming into something functional. Months of research, countless discarded prototypes, and a near-constant chorus of doubt echoing in her head had led to this moment. The Bartok collar, version 7.0, was almost ready. She adjusted her magnifying visor, her brow furrowed in concentration. One wrong move, one stray drop of solder, and the whole thing would be fried. Her fingers, usually nimble and precise, trembled slightly. She couldn't afford another setback. Not now. Not after everything. With a final, steady hand, she connected the last wire. A tiny green LED flickered to life, bathing the workbench in an ethereal glow. Lily held her breath. It was alive. Now came the real test, the translation software. Hours melted away as she meticulously ran diagnostic tests, feeding the system a database of canine vocalizations she'd painstakingly compiled. Barks, whimpers, growls, howls, each sound wave analyzed, categorized, and assigned a potential human equivalent. The screen swam with graphs and charts, a symphony of data she desperately hoped would harmonize. Frustration gnawed at her. The error rate was still too high. The software consistently misinterpreted a playful yip as a warning growl, a friendly woof as a sign of distress. She slumped back in her chair, the weight of her ambition pressing down on her. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was just a pipe dream. But then, a memory flickered. Buster, her childhood golden retriever, nudging her hand with his wet nose, a silent plea for a belly rub. She closed her eyes, recalling the unspoken connection, the intuitive understanding that transcended words. That was it. Intuition. The software was too literal. It needed to understand context, nuance, emotion. With renewed determination, she dove back into the code, tweaking algorithms, adding layers of artificial intelligence that mimicked the human ability to interpret subtle cues. Finally, after days of relentless coding and testing, a breakthrough. The error rate plummeted. The system began to recognize patterns, to differentiate between a bark of excitement and a bark of fear. Lily leaned back, her heart pounding, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. The workbench, usually a source of anxiety, now felt like a sanctuary. She had done it. Against all odds, she had created something extraordinary. A smile crept across her face, a genuine, unadulterated expression of joy. Eureka! A barking breakthrough. Buster speaks. Lily's fingers, slick with nervous sweat, fumbled with the bark talk collar. This was it. Months bled into this moment. A tapestry woven with hard-won progress, demoralizing stumbles, and a persistent drone of self-doubt. Failure loomed. Would the device register at all? Or would Buster remain blissfully ignorant of the tech? Now, circling his neck. She banished the thought, a familiar tide of unease threatening to pull her under. It had to work. Buster, eternally optimistic, cocked his head, a soft whine escaping him as he mistook the collar for his walking harness. Almost time for adventures, bud, Lily soothed, securing the clasp. The sleek gadget felt oddly cool against her skin, a stark contrast to the radiating heat of Buster's body. She powered on the receiver. The small screen blinked to life. All right, big guy, let's hear your thoughts. Silence hung heavy. Lily's breath hitched. Each drawn-out second amplified the whisper of uncertainty in her mind. Then a clear, modulated voice cut through the quiet. Treat. Now. Lily went rigid, eyes widening. It was Buster's bark, reshaped and delivered as a distinctly human demand. Imperfect, a tad robotic, but undeniably there. Sensing her hesitation, Buster whined again. The receiver crackled. Walkies. Stomach empty. Treat. Walkies. The demands poured forth in a rapid-fire litany of canine cravings. Lily dissolved into laughter, tears pricking her eyes. Success. It was actually working. She knelt, burying her face in the soft fur of Buster's neck. You little genius. You brilliant, furry Einstein. She jumped up, snatching a handful of his favorite chicken-flavored nuggets. Here you go, you deserving goofball. She tossed them to him one at a time, delighting in his enthusiastic gobbling. Then the leash. And yes, Mr. Impatient, we shall embark on our walk. A grand one. Stepping into the crisp evening air, a wave of exhilaration surged through Lily, a feeling she hadn't known in ages. The very air seemed sharper, the twilight hues richer. Buster, sensing her joy, bounded ahead, his tail a blur of ecstatic motion. She listened, enraptured, to the receiver, now discerning individual barks and the subtle emotional colorations in his tone. Squirrel. Chase. Playtime, it blurted. Lily grinned. This was merely the prologue, taking bark talk to the world. The website looked basic. Lily stared at the screen, the stark white background glaring back at her. BarkTalk.com, the domain name proclaimed in a font she'd agonized over for an hour, finally settling on something vaguely sans serif and inoffensive. Below it, a grainy photo of Winston, looking utterly unimpressed, modeling the collar. She'd spent the entire afternoon wrestling with WordPress, a program that promised simplicity but delivered only frustration. But it was live. That was the important thing. Next, the video. Lily propped her phone against a stack of cookbooks and coaxed Winston into performing his limited repertoire of tricks. Seat. Speak. High five. Each command was met with varying degrees of compliance, punctuated by Winston's signature dramatic sighs. She sprinkled in shots of him conversing with her using the BarkTalk collar, showcasing the pre-programmed phrases, I'm hungry, walkies please, and his personal favorite, belly rubs now. The filming was chaotic, punctuated by laughter and Winston's insatiable need for treats. Editing, however, was a different story. Hours blurred into a montage of cuts, transitions, and royalty-free background music that threatened to bore her into a coma. Finally, at 3 a.m., it was done. A slightly shaky, endearingly amateur video showcasing the magic of BarkTalk. Lily uploaded it to the website, linking it prominently on the homepage. She shared it on her social media, peppering her posts with optimistic hashtags. Hashtag BarkTalk, hashtag DogCommunication, hashtag revolutionize your walkies. Then she waited. Days trickled by. The website analytics mocked her with single-digit visitor counts. The video garnered a handful of likes, mostly from her mom and a couple of supportive friends. Sales? 0. Lily found herself refreshing the sales dashboard every 5 minutes, each empty space reinforcing the gnawing doubt that had haunted her since the initial pitch meeting. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was a stupid idea. Maybe she should just stick to spreadsheets and leave innovation to the experts. She slumped back in her chair, the bright screen reflecting in her tired eyes. Winston, sensing her mood, nudged her hand with his wet nose, a soft whine rumbling in his chest. Lily scratched behind his ears, the familiar comfort a temporary balm. He looked at her, his brown eyes filled with unwavering affection. Suddenly, a thought flickered. She hadn't programmed, "I love you," into the collar. Yet, viral victory. Lily woke to a persistent buzzing, not the gentle hum of her alarm, but an insistent, frantic vibration that wouldn't quit. Groping for her phone on the nightstand, she squinted at the screen. 247 new order notifications. 116 new emails. Dozens of missed calls. What the? She mumbled, sitting bolt upright. Had there been some kind of glitch? A system error? She clicked on the BarkTalk app and nearly choked on her own spit. Orders were pouring in, each accompanied by a cheerful woof woof. New order received. Panic threatened to engulf her, but then a surge of adrenaline kicked in. This couldn't be real. Could it? She scrolled through her email, heart hammering against her ribs. A subject line caught her eye. BarkTalk is trending. Hashtag dog translator. Clicking the link, she was launched into the chaotic world of Twitter. There it was, nestled amongst celebrity gossip and political rants. Hashtag dog translator. And right below it, a post from Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer himself. Finally, a way to understand what your furry friend is really thinking. At BarkTalk app is a game changer. Get yours today. Lily stared, mouth agape. Caesar Milan? Sharing her app? It felt like a dream. Or maybe she was still asleep, tangled in the sheets, destined to wake up to the cold reality of zero sales. But the notifications kept coming, the woof woof, a constant, exhilarating chorus. She scrambled out of bed, pulling on the first clothes she could find. The small apartment, usually a haven of quiet creativity, suddenly felt too small, bursting at the seams with the potential of BarkTalk. She opened her laptop, navigating to the BarkTalk website. The analytics were off the charts. Traffic was through the roof. People were actually buying it. Lily sank into her chair, a wave of exhaustion washing over her. This was it. The moment she dreamed of, worked towards, doubted, and almost abandoned. Now, it was here, a tidal wave of success threatening to drown her. But beneath the exhaustion and the anxiety, a thrill bubbled up, a defiant, exhilarating joy. She had done it. They had all doubted her, mocked her, but she had followed her gut, trusted her instincts. And now, the world was barking along with her. The real work was just beginning. From mockery to millions. Mark choked on his lukewarm coffee. BarkTalk? Trending? Seriously? Sarah, perched on the edge of her desk, scrolled through her phone, her jaw slack. It's everywhere, Mark. Look, hashtag BarkTalk, hashtag dog communication, hashtag LilyChin. She practically vibrated with disbelief. LilyChin? As in our LilyChin. Tom, ever the pragmatist, peered over her shoulder. It seems so. The app's got millions of downloads. People are saying it's revolutionary. He cleared his throat. Remember that presentation? The one we discouraged. Mark's face flushed crimson. He remembered all right. The snide remarks, the rolled eyes, the thinly veiled suggestions that Lily's idea was, well, barking mad. He slammed his mug down, the ceramic cracking slightly. This is impossible. It was just dog noises. Meanwhile, miles away, Lily was carefully placing a resignation letter on Mr. Henderson's mahogany desk. The fluorescent lights of the office seemed dimmer, less oppressive now. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "But I'm pursuing other ventures." Back in her tiny apartment, Buster, a golden retriever mix with perpetually hopeful eyes, tilted his head as Lily danced around the room, a whirlwind of joy. She scooped him up in a hug, burying her face in his fur. "We did it, Buster. We actually did it." She showered him with kisses, each one punctuated by his happy tail wags. "Tonight, Buster would have all the treats. The next few weeks were a blur. Lily, fueled by caffeine and sheer determination, worked tirelessly. Her apartment transformed into a makeshift office, overflowing with sticky notes and half-eaten takeout containers. She hired a small team, a coder who understood her vision, a marketing was with an uncanny ability to predict trends, and a customer service guru with the patience of a saint. Each member was meticulously chosen, not just for their skills, but for their belief in Bark Talk. One evening, as the setting sun cast long shadows across her bustling office, Lily paused, watching her team collaborate. Laughter mingled with the tap-tap-tap of keyboards. Buster, nestled at her feet, let out a contented sigh. She thought of Mark, Sarah, and Tom, still probably stuck in their cubicles churning out spreadsheets. A smile touched her lips. The taste of sweet revenge? No, it was sweeter than that. It was the taste of believing in herself.